Bro. So we have fmod. Now you'll see in my folder I need to get rid of this one because I bounced it out with a click track like an Adobe person. So let's just move that to trash. I'm going to start a new project. Now when it opens up like this, first thing we need to do is set up the file structure. It won't let you progress without setting up the file structure. So we're going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it God of War. Okay, I need to set up an event which goes within the folder. Now in this case it's a 2D menu. Okay? It's just a menu, it's not a 3D event, it's not gameplay. So it's a 2D timeline event. Okay, so now all of a sudden we've got the project there. Okay, it's here. I'm then going to go through to my assets, and this is where you should put any of your audio assets. So I'm going to take all my audio assets I'm going to use and drag and drop them into the assets menu. From here, I've got 3 parts I'm going to start to queue up. So I'm going to create 3 audio tracks. This part very much works like a DAW. So I'm just going to right click, add audio, double click. This is going to be main, let's call this loading. Let's call this main, and then let's call this one intense. Okay, so I'm just going to drag and drop those in a minute to the relevant tracks. First of all, notice at the top I've got time or beats. Because I'm dealing with music, I'm going to go on to beats. Okay, there's no BPM counter or anything like that, so I need to add a BPM marker so that it's in the right tempo. You'll notice that most things in this are done through markers and regions and stuff like that. It's a very simple menu complex, but everything's done through these random markers and sort of hidden bits and tools. So in this black ribbon here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to add a tempo marker. Just drag that back to the start, double click. It's all fairly intuitive, and my loops were done at 85 BPM in 4/4. Okay, easy peasy. I'm going to get my loading loop, drag that in, and look, it's 4 bars. Okay, so a simplified version of my main part. Okay, I'm going to loop that. So again, right click, add a loop region. Now I can drag things down and up and just stretch that out. And we know if I start playing, okay. I'm now going to add my second one, my main. So my core loop goes in here. I'm going to start it about a bar after. So there we go. Hold down Alt, I believe, and use the scrolly mousey thing. And there we go. To zoom in and out. Again, right click, add a loop region. Now why does that appear to go out of time? Oh, because randomly, no. Let's have a look back there. What's going on here? Oh no, it is. Why did that look like it was going out of time before? Oh, I've just got my dodgy view. There we go. Okay. So we've got the second loop. Now I've got to name these sections up. So I'm going to add a destination marker. Okay. Again, call it main. Add a destination marker. Oh, where's it put it? Drag it down to the other region. Call it loading. Okay. Now I'm going to add another loop in. This time it's going to be a I'm going to add another marker in. It's going to be a transition to marker. Transition to regions. Add transition region. Yeah, add transition region to marker. And in this case, it's going to be from the loading to the main. So the marker needs to be main. So here, I'm going to put that around my loading loop. And so my loading loop will loop round until a logic argument happens that says, okay, now we're ready to go through to the core loop. And it'll take you to the main section. Okay, so I've got to create that logic argument. So here, I click on the transition region. I'm going to add quantization. That basically means that I can get out of that loop at any 8th note point. Okay. If it was on quarter note, I could get out at any quarter note. If it was off, then it wouldn't transition from this audio until it actually physically reached the end of the loop. Now, with a short loop like mine, not a problem, because the end's going to come pretty quickly. If it's a 32-bar loop and the loop's just started playing, and it was a transition at the end of the loop, it would be weird because potentially by the time that loop's finished, you've already done what you need to do on the menu and entered the game. So it needs to be responsive. So I'm going to put that on 8th note, and we can always play with that after to see if it feels fluid or not. So then I need to create the argument, so add a condition. Now at the moment, there are no parameters, so we need to create a parameter to start with. Parameters are created by clicking this plus here. So at the moment, we've got one parameter, which is time. Although we're viewing it as beats, it's still time. Okay, so add a parameter. I'm just going to call this switch. And this switch is going to act between my switcher between a loading menu, a main menu, a settings menu, entering the game or quitting the game. So 5 things. So including 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 0, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we need one that goes from 0 to 5. Initial value is 0. 0 is going to represent my loading menu.
Did you not say include 0 from 0 to 4?
Yes, sorry. It includes 0, yeah. I knew I was counting on my hand for some reason. I went 0, 1, 2. Yeah, cool. So 0 to 4, initial value is 0, which means every time it loads up, it will load up to the loading screen. So I'm going to set my initial argument that my loading screen is going to be 0. So therefore, whenever it initializes, it will always start with the loading menu, sorry, the loading music. Click OK. Now when I come down to add condition, one of the parameters I've got that I can add a condition to is the switch. You'll also notice that the switch appears up here. That's my interaction with it. Okay, I can interact. Then we create this argument. So I'm telling it anywhere from, this is where resolution sucks. Anywhere from 0 to 1, and it stays where it is. Okay, anything outside of that, then we're going to get it to, right, start again. Destination to main, that's already set, lovely. Add condition, parameters condition, switch. Anything from 0 to 1, and it's going to stay put. When it exceeds 1, it's going to change to main. Okay, so let's check that out. So we should press play. Okay, so it's done it with that. So you'll see there's a tiny little line down. If I start dragging this up, can you see that line down here? Tiny little line. That line's moving around, so anything that falls within that parameter is going to stay on that loop. Okay, as soon as I exceed that parameter, so this is where the programming engineer would go. When this image loads up, it's got the value of 1 attached to it on the switch, which would then trigger it to move to the next section. So when this exceeds to 1, it allows it to progress. So if I've got a slow console, let's say you peasants on PS4s, then your machine will take longer to load than my brand new PS5. Yeah? So you're having to wait on this menu for longer until the game loads and the signal sent to the switch, the value was changed from above 1. So your experience will be different to mine, and the music will behave that way. So you'll be on this menu for ages on your little PS4s, and then it'll eventually go. Okay? Whereas me, on my PS5, I'll be on that menu, and it'll go switch on, And straight away it will load up like that. So you can start to see where this goes. Based on your interaction or experience of the game, the music will change. Now, we create another transition region 2. Now, I'm just going to use this as a demo, but you wouldn't go back to the loading menu necessarily, not the initial starting loading menu, unless you reset your console. But just as an example, so this region, its instructions are to return, are going to be to return to the loading menu if the value goes back down below 1. So again, 8th note quantize, add a condition, parameter, switch, and this time I'm going to leave it as uninverted.
Sorry, how did you invert?
There's just an invert button, yeah. My brain naturally works for some reason the other way around, so I automatically default to the inverted. So now when we press play, it should stay in this section. If it drops below 1, okay. If I show you what I mean by this quantization, I'm going to turn it off, okay? So the value is going to go above 1. Responsively goes to the main music. If it now goes below 1, it just jumps straight away, out of time. Or there's no natural. The problem is with that version, that's not in time. It just randomly jumps whenever. If I set my response time as too slow, like let's say 2 bars. Okay, it's dropped below now. I'm waiting, and then finally responds. It's not very responsive. Chris, yeah, you are going to miss stuff, but yeah. Okay, so I find 8th note or quarter notes work quite nicely. It's responsive, but it's not jolty. And that's why it's quite important that these loops work together, because you are going to be you are going to be transitioning from one to another, okay? And we just continue to build up these logic arguments. So then this main menu would have multiple transition regions. So let's say we'd have settings menu, enter game, quit game, and there'd be about 4, I think it is, there'd be 4 regions around this loop. And depending on how high the value reached, it would go to a different menu. So let's say the settings menu has a value of 3 to 3.9. If the computer sent out the signal that the value would fall in between 3 to 3.9, it would jump to the settings menu. If the computer sent out the signal that it jumped to 4 to 4.9, it would skip to the gameplay menu. Okay? So based on the logic argument that takes place and the value that is received, it will jump to a different wave. Okay? How this then gets more complex in gameplay is when we link additional parameters, not just a switch that changes, like when you walk into a room, the music changes. When you walk out of a room, the music changes. You go into a service station on GTA, the music changes. Not just a simple switch like that, but what if you're in a battle and your health's going down? How can we emulate that in music? Well, the music can get more intense, so we can add percussion in there that fades in. Guys, please. You might want to replicate the damage to a person's body. So you might have a heavy breathing sound that fades in as the health goes down. You might have a high-pitched tinnitus, like an explosion, or that also fades in as the health goes down. Okay, you might be playing a medieval game where you've got armor on and stuff, and you want the sound of the armor clanking to get louder as the intensity of the battle goes on. All these things will be different parameters. So you might have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 parameters up here, all responding to various values which are embedded in the coding of the game based on proximity to an enemy, health, quality of armor and how it's diminishing over time in the battle. Perhaps your ammunition's getting low. Perhaps there should be a heartbeat that starts to come in when your ammunition's getting low to make it even more tense. But all these values are programmed into the game by the programmers, and then you decide what the effect on the music or the sound is going to be based on that interaction. That all makes sense? So if you've got some audio, you can open fmod and start to try and chuck it in there. for the last 15 minutes. If you haven't, concentrate on getting some audio finished. You can always whack it on a memory stick or OneDrive and take it away with you. fmod is free to download, completely free to use, runs on PC, runs on Mac. Yes, Josh?